Welcome to part 2 of our cruise to Antarctica. First stop, Elephant Island. So it's about 2:40 and we're supposed to arrive at Elephant Island right around 3, sometime between 3 and 4. And within the last 10 minutes, it just became super foggy. So I'm hoping the fog clears because at Elephant Island there's lots of elephant seals. We're supposed to see whales, more penguins. But if it's this foggy, we're not going to be seeing much. So it's about 20 minutes later since our last video and the fog has lifted, and there is Elephant Island. And so it's got a big place in history. There's lots of stories about Elephant Island, but there it is. Hopefully we'll see some elephant seals. Elephant Island is an island that is about 150 miles off the tip of Antarctica. It is still part of the Antarctica continent. It is an ice-covered island, and there are glaciers everywhere. One of the most famous glaciers there is the Endurance Glacier. It was named after a ship that had shipwrecked in Antarctica that was captained by Shackleton, who was an explorer that visited Antarctica many times. The story of Shackleton and his men is just a crazy story. And if you haven't heard it, you need to look it up. It's amazing that none of his men lost their lives on these expeditions. That night, there was no entertainment in the theater because it was Super Bowl Sunday. And the entertainment was the showing of the Super Bowl. And the ship did an amazing job. They had cheerleaders. They had a big screen TV. They had a cake. They had finger food. They had wings, and it was just a fun time. And it was great watching the game with people from around the world. And it was also great watching the Kansas City Chiefs win their second Super Bowl. It may not look like it right now, but there's a big storm in the Atlantic, and I'll show you a picture of that in just a minute. But today we were supposed to go to Port Stanley in the Falkland Islands, and we had a great excursion. We were going to take these 4x4s around the whole island and country, and then go to a beach where they have these 200 breeding pairs of penguins, and we were going to be right on the beach and walking around with them and get some up-close pictures, but apparently that is not going to happen. In Falkland Islands today, they're having sustained winds at about 60 miles per hour. Waves are over 20 feet, and they don't have a port there where the boat can go, and so you have to go and kind of dock and take tenders in, and apparently it's just unsafe to do that, and so we are not going there today. So apparently the ship is heading, we're going to Puerto Madryn, which is in Argentina. We'll get there about a half a day early, and so spend 2 days there, and so we'll update you once we get there. Here's a little satellite image of the storm that's right over the Falkland Islands. One of the great things that the ship did was every day while we were at sea, they had lectures in the morning. The lectures started at 9, and they also had one at 10 and 11, and you could go learn about Antarctica and the climate and the landscape and the animals, and they were very informative, but you could kind of pick and choose which lectures you wanted to see. But that afternoon, we made it to Puerto Madryn. Puerto Madryn is a city that's on the east coast of Antarctica, and it is in Patagonia, and it is the gateway to Patagonia. Eric and I are biking through Puerto Madryn, Argentina. Just got off the cruise ship, went to a bike place, rented some bikes, and we're heading to Punta Luma, I think, where there's a bunch of sea lions. So we're just driving on this road. All right, we're biking through the Patagonia area in Argentina right now. And we're on this rock road. These cars are coming, and there's all kind of dust. So we put on our mask. I'll show you. So there's a car coming, but we got our mask on. And we're ready. We're ready for the dust. Well, maybe we were. Erica's coughing again. We made it to Punta Loma. We were hoping to get a little closer to the sea lions, but it was such a rocky cliff that you just couldn't get down to them. So we had to take some pictures from up at this viewing platform. After seeing as much as we wanted to see of the sea lions, we decided to get on our bikes and head back to Puerto Madryn. And it was an 11-mile bike ride to Punta Loma, and so we had 11 miles to go to get back. On the way, we stopped at a few different places and saw some of the amazing scenery of the coastline and the Atlantic Ocean. One of the awesome places that we saw was this camping beach, and it was amazing. There were campers everywhere, and it made Eric and I a little jealous that we didn't have our camper with us. They had an amazing view, but I think this beach was called Piranha Beach. Where all the campers are. We came from way over there at Punta Loma. That's our ship way off in the distance. I don't know if you can see it. And that's Puerto Madryn way off in the distance. We're heading back there. We've already rode 15 miles. Got another 5 miles to go, it looks like. So after our long bike ride, we finally made it back into town, and it was amazing. The roads became asphalt then, and so it was a lot easier to pedal. And then once we got into town, we rode right along this boardwalk by the beach. And you could see a lifeguard stand and our ship in the back. And Punta Madryn was just a beautiful town. They had a beautiful beachfront, and there were just people out everywhere. And it was a beautiful day. After our ride, we entered the dock area and then made the long walk back to our ship. It was worth it because once we got back and showered, we went and had supper, and it was an amazing experience. After supper, we headed back into Punta Madryn for the evening, and we went into some shops, walked along the boardwalk, saw all the people and families out, and it was just a wonderful evening. And I'm glad we got here a day early to spend this extra time in Puerto Madryn. The next morning, our excursion was to a national park in the Patagonia area of Argentina called Peninsula Valdez. And our first stop was at their welcome center. It was very informative. There were some fossils, and there were many exhibits there. There was also a little gift shop that sold some snacks and souvenirs. There was a short hiking trail right outside of the visitor center as well. And that was a good place just to stretch our legs after the hour drive to this national park. We then left the visitor center and continued our drive to the national park. We came upon a herd of guanacos, which in my mind are like a cross between llamas and alpacas. And then we headed to another penguin place. The penguins were fun to watch. But after being at this stop for about a half an hour, we decided to move on. We stopped at another scenic overlook, and there you could overlook the peninsula and see the beautiful Atlantic Ocean as it came into this inlet. Our guide told us that oftentimes she will see orcas as they're coming through this inlet and hunt for elephant seals. And we were fortunate enough to see some elephant seals a little bit later on our next stop. And here are those elephant seals that I was talking about. They really don't move around much and they just kind of lay around all day, but they were fun to watch. We then went to another stop and went on a little hike, and there we saw some amazing views as well. It was an amazing day, but it was really, really windy. As we were about to leave this area, people mentioned that there were some orcas down right in this area. And so we ran back down to the viewing area and were able to catch a glimpse of the orcas. And then we boarded our bus again and we're heading back out of Peninsula Valdez and back to Puerto Madryn. We got back on the ship, had supper, and then went to another amazing show. These people had incredible strength and a great display of agility. Montevideo, Uruguay. And I heard this is a pretty cool city. They've got an awesome town center, and we're going to take a city tour. So we're going to get out there and explore the city. Our tour actually didn't start until about 10:30 in the morning, and the ship had docked at 8. So Eric and I were just itching to get out in the city and walk around. And so we got off the boat and we started heading to Old Town. It was a beautiful place, and one of our first stops was Zabala Plaza. And this is a plaza right in the middle of town. And it was a beautiful green space, had this wonderful funky tree and just the sculpture. Along the walk, there were all kind of buildings that had artwork and graffiti on them. But we kept walking and we came to Constitution Plaza. This was another plaza that was just probably a few hundred yards away from Zabala Square or Zabala Plaza. As we kept walking, we came upon this outdoor art exhibit that was sponsored by one of the local museums there in town. And Erica was enjoying the artwork, and it was a pretty cool sight to see. We came to Independence Plaza, and this is the building where the president works, the president of Uruguay. After seeing the sights that we wanted to see and spending some time in Independence Square and taking some pictures and looking at the monuments, we then decided to head back to the port. On our way back, though, as we were leaving the square, we saw this historical theater that is right on the edge of the square. We then boarded our bus to go on our city tour, and one of our first stops was at the Montevideo Letters. It overlooked this beautiful beach, and along the beach there is this walking and running path. People were biking on it, and this path went for 13 miles through the edge of the city along the waterway. We stopped at a few other monuments along the way, and it was just a beautiful day. Montevideo was a beautiful city, and just had numerous beaches there. There were people out and about the whole day, and it was just wonderful to see. We drove through some more neighborhoods, and then after a while, we ended up at Centero Stadium. This stadium is very historic. It is the site of the first World Cup in 1928, and it is a World Cup that Uruguay won. They had won the previous two Olympic soccer tournaments, and because they were the reigning Olympic champion, their country was picked to host the World Cup. This is an overview I got off the internet of the inside of the stadium. Right close to the stadium then is Corretto Monument, and this is a monument that we stopped and looked at as well. We then went into an indoor market, and we got some empanadas there. But it was awesome seeing the different vegetable and fruit stands. Our tour then ended up back in Independence Square, and it was a little bit sunnier then. It was a little warmer. The day was nice. There was a lot more people out, and so we decided to walk back to the boat from Independence Square. As we were walking back, the restaurants had already set up a lot of tables and things. Vendors were out selling some stuff, and so Erica stopped and bought some earrings, and I bought a hat off of a guy. I'm wearing the hat there. But then we ended up by the market by the port, and let me just tell you, they had these awesome grills. They were fixing all kind of meat, and I had the best steak I had ever had in my life. We went back, though, and then had dinner, and this is a group that we had eaten with our whole trip, and a bunch of fun people. We had some amazing conversations. That night, before the evening entertainment, our cruise director, Manuel, introduced a bunch of the crew, and then shortly after, the evening entertainment started. The next morning, we were in Buenos Aires, and we got off the ship, got our luggage, and then got on a bus to enjoy a city tour of Buenos Aires. Our first stop was in the La Boca area, and it is a beautiful, colorful area of the city that is right next to the oldest port in town. And it was a great place to visit, and it was wonderful getting lost in the colorful streets of La Boca. If you didn't know it, soccer is huge in Argentina, but they actually call it football. And we went by Boca Stadium, which is one of the most famous stadiums in Buenos Aires. They even had some of the doors open, and we were able to see a little bit of the field. We then went to Recoleta Cemetery, which is a very famous cemetery in Buenos Aires. And we went on a tour of this place. One of the most famous people that is buried in this cemetery is Evita, or Eva Perón. She was the first lady in Argentina, and she made a great impact on the history of that land, and the people of Argentina loved her. And this is where she is buried. Unfortunately, Eva Perón died at the age of 33 of cancer. It was a tragic loss for the country of Argentina. We then continued our tour through Buenos Aires, and we went by many parks that had sculptures. We went by many historical buildings and monuments, and it was just amazing to see this city. One thing of interest, this area of Argentina does not have any native trees, and so all the trees that are here had been brought in from other places. This city was a mixture of old and new. It is called the Paris of the South America, and a lot of the architecture resembles what you'll see in Paris, but it also had modern skyscrapers, and it was just a beautiful place. After our tour, we went about 45 miles outside of Buenos Aires and went to an Argentina ranch and saw a show and then had a wonderful meal. The ranch was pretty cool. They had animals just roaming around, chickens and peacocks, and this is the place where they were cooking the meat or grilling the meat for our meal, and it was just a beautiful place. This is the building that we all went into to have our lunch, and after we ate, it was time for a show. We then headed back outside and made our way across the ranch to an area where they were going to be having some cowboy games, and these were fun to watch. So in this game, a cowboy has a little stick, and he's trying to get a ring while riding at full speed.
Yes! He got it, he got it. No, he couldn't get it.
And then in the next game, they get a bigger pole and a bigger ring.
He got it. Yes. Yes, he got it.
If they were successful in getting the ring, then they would ride through the crowd and hand the ring to one of the ladies that was watching this event. It was a pretty cool sight to see. After that, we got back on the bus and we headed back to the airport. It was about time to leave Buenos Aires. It was a great trip and we loved it, and can't wait to come back again sometime. We left Buenos Aires and it was night. We got on the plane, we flew all night, and we landed in JFK in New York City. After we landed and cleared customs, we boarded another plane and then headed to snowy Indianapolis. We went from summertime in South America back to wintertime here. I just want to leave you with some of the great pictures that we took from our trip. I hope you enjoyed the video.